Go.
Go.
Greetings, cardboard architects, and welcome to episode 16 of Command Tower, a video series about Magic the Gathering Commander. In this episode, we'll take a look at Simon's Spaceballs deck.
Greetings, cardboard architects, and welcome to another episode of Command Tower. In this episode, I've got Spaceballer Simon Diamond with me, and he's got a blue-green Edric deck for us today. He's got a lot of ramp and a couple combos that you'd be interested to see in this deck. It's very cool card interactions. How's it going today, Simon?
Doing all right. Hey, thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So first of all, Simon, why don't you tell us, your deck is nicknamed Spaceballs, so why the name, what's the joke, and what does that have to do with the cards that you're playing in this deck?
All right, so just a quick background. The deck itself is named after the movie Spaceballs, which was created back in 1987. It's an old Mel Brooks parody film on the Star Wars franchise. It makes fun of Star Wars,
right.
Makes fun of Jewish culture, and so on and so forth. A lot of cheeky, tongue-in-cheek humor. In that same vein, Spaceballs is a lot similar to Magic, or at least for the Commander format, where this deck tries to take itself too seriously intentionally, in effect to try and be a joke. And one of the key cards, of course, is Deadeye Navigator, which I'll get into in a little bit more in this interview.
Okay. I like it. So a lot of crazy combos, some over-the-top stuff that you told me before, you're asking the question, why is this card not banned?
Right, and it's a joke, really. The simple fact is that there are ways to stop Deadeye Navigator. He has a Soul Bond trigger, which is an enter the battlefield trigger, which can be stopped by Stifle, Void Slime, Trick Bind, Void Mage Husher, things like that. He can also be stopped by Torpor Orb and Hushwing Griff, or anything that can hose any sort of a creature in response to its trigger.
Indeed. There are ways to answer that card, but it is a pretty egregious offense. If you don't have answers to it, you're not going to be a happy camper.
No, and 9 times out of 10, if an interaction with Deadeye Navigator involved is on the field and there are no responses, chances are I'm going to walk away with the game.
No doubt. Seeing the other cards in your deck, I'm sure that that is true, and probably has happened.
Yeah.
So, Simon, tell us how your deck works, basically. How does it start out in the early game, whether it be mana ramp or other ways to get your deck rolling, proceed into the mid game, and then how does it cap out in the late game and finish?
Okay. So, first and foremost, let me point out that there are no mana rocks in this deck. It's all land ramp.
Okay.
Spells like
green.
Cultivate, spells like Cultivate, Farseek, Kadama's Reach, etc., etc. So this is in basically 6 steps that I do this, not counting a couple other sub-steps. First off, you ramp early, play some lands, keep counterspell mana available, and a counterspell available as well. You never know who's going to want to walk away with the game that quickly. Step 2, play Edric with a counterspell in hand just in case somebody wants to take him off the field that quickly. After Edric lands, you drop some early game dorks in order to beat base so that you can draw cards. I cannot stress this enough. Edric is a house when it comes to drawing cards, especially in keeping the heat off you.
Definitely.
Cards that I like to use here that fit the bill are typically within the 1 to 4 CMC slots, such as Veteran Explorer, Brawn, Wonder, Edric himself, Rough Sweeper, so on and so forth. And I really like Veteran Explorer because he can help you solidify to the table that you're not intentionally a threat and that you're trying to be politically correct with everybody. He helps everybody get lands, and who doesn't like lands? Now that we're kind of getting more into the mid-game, I have a tendency to use Edric as a political tool in order to sow dissension at the table. And generally what I'll do is I'll use table talk.
It's very interesting. Edric is super powerful for you because, like you said, you can start out and start to draw the cards that you need to get your thing going. But also, like you said before, Edric really can get the heat off of you by saying, what motive do you have to attack me when you can go attack this other guy and draw a bunch of cards?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in French EDH, before he was banned as a general, he was literally seen in most of the championship matches for French EDH before it became dual commander. So, I mean, that's got to say something.
Definitely. Yeah, that definitely speaks to his power level.
Yeah, exactly. Counter spells, weenies, draw spells, etc. So, to kind of get back to what we were talking about, generally through table talk, by pointing out the obvious, I'll generally maintain a low profile, continue drawing card ramp, and around this time, I'll have 7-8 mana. Boundless Realms becomes available.
Yeah.
And if you Boundless Realms for 7 to 8 or more, you're dumping half your deck onto the field, or at least half your land base onto the field, rather, I should say.
Oh yeah, pretty much.
Now that said, this does get you noticed. So this is where step
For sure.
5. Now this is where step
It's like
5.
red flag.
Yeah,
He's got a million lands in play.
Right. This is kind of where things start taking a turn for the worse for them, at least. Here I'll play mid-range threats. This is step 5. Mid-range threats to solidify board positions, such as Tidespout, Tyrant, Patron of the Moon. Prophet is obviously in this deck, and especially Momir Vig. Especially Momir Vig, who is the alternate general for French EDH. This is a French EDH league deck. So that's one of the defining characteristics of this deck, because it's not only budget friendly, but it also is viable in different formats.
Nice.
And so, based on what we've talked about so far, we're starting to get now into the late game. Let's go to step 6, where it really starts.
Phase 6. So how are we finishing off? How are we taking people out?
In hand. Right. So when you get to that point, like turn 12, 13 later, generally with a counterspell in hand, 2 if I can pull that off, which is usually possible, especially if there's more than one blue player. I'll drop a Tooth and Nail Entwined or a Genesis Wave from out of nowhere. And depending on the size of the Genesis Wave and what's pulled, this can be done to great effect. I've done, for example, 2 to 3 Genesis Waves in one turn, for example, pulling 30, 40 cards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, totally doable.
Crazy.
Now,
yeah, I can imagine your Genesis Waves are big with all this crazy ramp you have, like Boundless Realms.
Right.
And I imagine that you can recur the Genesis Wave with stuff like Eternal Witness, blinking it out with Deadeye, that type of thing.
Right. Eternal Witness and Archaeomancer are both in this deck, and I also have a pretty good recursion package through Regrowth, Noxious Revival, I listed those 2, and Recollect as well. And I'm sure we'll be able to put up the actual URL for where my deck is actually located. That way they can see some of the notes also.
Absolutely. Check it out down below.
Yeah, it's one thing to hear from me. It's totally different to actually play test it yourself and actually see what it really does.
Yeah, so we'll post the deck for you over on Tapped Out, and you can actually use their playtest feature to shuffle up a couple times, draw some hands, and play the deck out just to kind of goldfish it and see how it rolls.
Yeah, and speaking of Tooth and Nail, out here in Portland, we have a tendency to call it the one-card combo because it is left unchecked. If it is not countered, it will end a game.
Yeah.
And especially with this in mind, in the event that I have either Palinchron or Peregrine Drake and Prime Speaker and or Coiling Oracle in hand, or even for that matter, Deadeye Navigator in hand.
Yeah.
If I cast Tooth and Nail, I'm going to try and win the game. I'm going to just try and lock it out right there.
No doubt.
So the primary win con is Deadeye, Palinchron, or Peregrine Drake, and Prime Speaker, Zegana, or Coiling Oracle. What that does is that when you flicker the mana creature, Palinchron or Peregrine Drake, you basically make infinite mana. With Zegana or Coiling Oracle, you either draw your deck or you filter your draw. And you end up putting your lands onto the field, and you end up putting non-lands right near you.
Right. So the end game is basically consisting of a ton of ramp into maybe multiple Genesis Waves or some flickering, tricky, game-ending, infinite combo stuff.
And I'd like to also mention that with that interaction that I just mentioned, that there's a couple different other interactions that are possible. I had mentioned, for example, Archaeomancer and Eternal Witness being in the deck. One of the other cards that are in this deck is Time Warp. So Deadeye, Archaeomancer, Time Warp, infinite turns right You also have biovisionary and rite of replication that are also in this deck. That's also used as an alternate win condition.
There you go. That would work too. So moving on, Simon, what's your favorite card in your deck?
I have quite a number, but I mean, there's a couple off the top that I can list. Obviously, Deadeye Navigator. This guy is just completely egregious. And
Yes.
I purposely jokingly say, why is this guy not banned? It's because his power level for the purposes of EDH is that.
Yeah, he's like the paragon of the joke that you're telling.
Right. He is literally, in my opinion, the President Scroob of the deck, even though Edric is more Scroob in person. You also have cards like Prophet of Crufix. At one point I had Seaborn Muse in this deck, but the fact of being able to drop creatures at instant speed just outweighed Seaborn Muse's capacity in this deck. And Prophet, quite frankly, is also, what, a $2 card, $2.50?
Is it really?
Yeah, she's like $2.50 on average, and Seaborn Muse is like 10.
Oh, wow. That's okay.
Well, the difference is that you untap all permanents. You just can't cast creatures at instant speed.
Right. You know, I hadn't thought about that difference, actually. Okay.
You know, I try to keep it as budget friendly as humanly possible. In fact, the tropical island that I have in the deck is a collector's edition, and I don't want to have to spend $150, $200 just on a non-basic land that's obviously that powerful.
Oh, that particular version is a little cheaper?
Yeah, it's about half the price on average.
I gotcha. Okay, Simon, can you tell us about some of the cool interactions in your deck? Maybe two or three card. I'm sorry, did you want to say something else?
No, I was going to talk about that. I mean, like you had mentioned.
Oh, definitely.
Like
can we kick off with the one that I thought was the most interesting, which I posted over on the Facebook page the other day? Cream of the crop plus lurking predators. As a green player, I can really appreciate that. I also enjoy enchantments particularly. So tell us how these powerhouse green enchantments make themselves even better when they're together.
Okay, so Cream of the Crop, for those that want to go ahead and look it up on like magiccards.info, you'll see that.
Yeah, I'll show it on the screen.
Yeah, it's a 1 in a green enchantment that says, when a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the power of the creature. Put one of those cards on top, put the rest on the bottom. Lurking Predator says, whenever an opponent casts a spell, reveal the top card. If it's a creature, put it directly onto the field. So what happens is, with Lurking Predators, if you hit a creature and or if you stack your deck, and in this case I have some ways to do that, you hit a creature, that creature comes right onto the field. That triggers Cream of the Crop. Go ahead and look at the top X cards of your library and put another creature right on top. And so it's daisy chains.
Yeah, it just chains, yep.
And I can tell you, from my own personal experience, I pulled off the Deadeye Navigator Palinchron interaction because of this before a couple different times.
Yeah, you were able to dig it up with the combo.
Yeah.
So what are some other cool interactions in the deck?
From more of a defensive perspective, Eternal Witness and Evacuation.
Okay.
Archaeomancer also substitutes because Evacuation is an instant.
Yep.
So what this does is it causes a soft lock to occur where creatures are basically not able to stay on the battlefield for any considerable length of time and or attack me without having them get bounced to hand. So you play Evacuation goes to the yard. Come your turn, play Archaeomancer or Eternal Witness, return Evacuation to hand. And then you just keep bouncing.
Yep.
It's a really, really good stall tactic.
Definitely a stall tactic.
It's definitely a great stall tactic. It works against aggro decks especially,
For
such
sure.
as like Heroic decks. Another interaction that I also wanted to touch on that's been a little bit more well known has been Abundance and Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library allows you to look at the top 3 cards and put any of them in your hand as long as you pay 4 life after the first one that you draw. Abundance is a replacement effect that says, okay, whenever you would normally draw, instead name a land or a non-land, put that type in your hand. So what that does in tandem with each other is it says, okay, you draw those 3 cards, but instead of those being drawn, you actually get to put those 3 cards directly into your hand without drawing them, and you don't have to put any of those cards back or lose life for them.
That is very nice.
In an early game situation with that kind of an interaction out turn 3, turn 4, it spirals out of control. You're drawing 3 cards. Yeah, you draw 3 cards at a minimum per turn, and that's if you don't attack with Edric or any of the other guys that are on the field.
Yeah, that's a very nice interaction. I personally have abundance in my Derevi deck, which is based around Merfolk Looter, so lots of draw discard effects. So with the top card of the library constantly changing, you're able to continuously get either land or spell, whichever you want. In the later game, you can get juice. In the early game, you can get the lands that you need to keep ramping up. All right, so Simon, the last question I'll ask you is, can you tell us maybe just 1 or 2 of your least favorite cards that you hate seeing against coming from the other side of the table at you? And what do you do proactively to kind of deal with those cards?
Wow. You know, I know we briefly talked about this before the interview, but there's just a litany of cards that I can go on and on and on about that I would never want to see on the table, period, much less on my side.
Yeah. Hit us with your top 2 least favorite.
Top 2 least favorite. Ugh. That's a good question. I would say probably one of them is Iona, Shield of Emeria. I do not want to get locked out of my deck.
I concur.
And along those same lines, since we're talking about things that stop Deadeye Navigator, one that does not get enough love is Linvala, Keeper of Silence. This card is aggressively geared towards decks that have activated abilities.
Yes.
And so, because Linvala turns off activated abilities, she turns off Deadeye Navigator, which is one of the cornerstones of this deck.
Oh, absolutely.
And I would also like to mention, as just a final runner-up, and I ran into this not too long ago, was Dovescape. Dovescape, unfortunately, causes problems for this deck if I don't have a counterspell in hand.
I was playing last night, and I was playing my blue-white Drago deck. I had Dovescape out, and it was just, oh my goodness, you don't even want to know what was going on. There's a green enchantment that whenever a creature becomes tapped, you get a charge counter on it, and you pull the charge counter off and get counters. So this guy had like basically an almost infinite combo of generating a butt ton of mana by casting his commander, who was immediately countered and got him birds. He would attack with the birds, generate all the mana with this enchantment, and keep casting his commander over and over and over and over and over again, and it would continually get countered, and he had like 135 bird tokens on the field.
That's pretty cool. I don't know what enchantment that is off the top of my head. And
it's a newer one. It might be from Avacyn or Gatecrash.
Okay, well, I mean, because you're talking about having the spell itself counter. So, since you're talking about a creature...
Oh, no, But the spell countering one is Dovescape.
Well, no, it counters non-creature spells.
Oh, I'm sorry. The commander was one of the new Planeswalker commanders, actually, which is a non-creature.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Freyalise. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, in that case, that's going to cause a lot of problems. And, like you said, any non-creature commander, such as a Planeswalker, shuts them out completely. It's
Absolutely.
really, really dirty. And, I mean, you want to talk about Dovescape, and I'm just going to end it with this. Elish Norn and Dovescape kill all the birds.
Oh, I like it. All right, so there you have it. Some cards to look out for, Commander players, and some different ways to deal with them. Courtesy of Simon Diamond, our friend. Thanks for hanging out with us, Simon. I had a great time. It was awesome talking about your deck, some of the different cool combos. And, just check out the link below. You can go over to tappedout.com, look at the exact 100 cards that Simon's got in his deck, and you can even play test it using Tappedout's playtester. So with that, I'll say bye to you, Simon. Any last words?
Tappedout.net, just, for the purposes of seeing how the deck in and of itself works, has been a really useful tool in as far as helping me sort out some of the issues. And one site that I've been recently using has been untap.in, which is a web browser program that allows you to play Magic the Gathering online using decks that are already posted online. You could actually port one of your decks from Tapped Out, for example, onto untap.in, and you can, literally play with anybody over around the world and go to town. And, I personally don't have a problem with somebody porting over my deck. The only thing I would ask is if you're going to do that, contact Dodo Bird Commander, get permission first. I usually don't have an issue.
Okay, fair enough, Simon. All right, so straight out of the vital Portland EDH community, which is one of the best places to play Commander in the country, we're going to sign off with Simon Diamond. And as for me, check out Dodo Bird Commander. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. I'll throw some links up for you. And for more awesome content, subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching.